Got it. Hi, everyone. And our episode topic today is running your web business, big or small, freelance or full agency. And we've got Gill and Martin here and myself, Mike Devitt. And we're really talking here about this battle that most of the people who get into the web design business go through as to whether they grow straight away, try to run a full agency, or whether they stay as like a freelancer on their own, or whether they go and work with other people. So our question here is it go big or go home, or do you get to a certain level and stay there? And so we've got some people here with Gill and Martin who are really experienced in having dealt with these sorts of situations and really want to talk to them and talk about this subject today. So what do you think, Jill? What do you think? Are you a go big or go home person, or I like to get to a certain level and I'm going to stay there?
Yeah, well, I quite like the idea of go big or stay home. That's what we do as freelancers. And
Yeah.
I think I just probably stole that from Martin. Anyway, but there we go. I think what I've tried to do is to cautiously grow. So I had a bit of a false start when I first started out. And this business got underway during the COVID pandemic. And if some of you were around at that time, you might have experienced some significant growth because a lot of people had time in their hands. They were pivoting. They had sometimes some government money. There was a lot of grants around at that time. And so things got really busy for us. So I thought, wow, this is brilliant, and we're gonna grow into this massive big agency, and so that was the driver, and I took on some people, and I made a lot of mistakes, and then I made them all go away again, and we started
The people or the mistakes?
both.
Both. Get rid of the people and you get rid of the mistakes.
Well, there is some truth in that, isn't there?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, none of us are infallible, but yeah,
But can
yeah.
I just ask you a question about that? So when you started working with others, did you have like this real tension about trusting other people who are going to be working under um your your business
Mm.
name? So, basically you can't, unless you're the type of person that's like a control freak and you're going to look at every aspect of what somebody's doing and QA everything before it goes anywhere. You have to trust people to get on with the job, and then obviously you're going to have to pay them accordingly, and sometimes you're almost begrudge paying someone because you've done so much work yourself in getting this piece of work, this project, to the place you want it to be. That's, you think, I might as well have done it myself. Excuse me.
Yeah, I think that there's a lot in that, isn't there? So I think, are there any of us that have started out in this business that are not control freaks? I think most of us are towards that end of the spectrum, if it is a spectrum. And we want to know that something is done right. It's our reputation, it's our business. Our business is our baby, whether we're just a one-man band at the moment or whether we plan to stay that way. It's still ours, and it's still, precious to us, and we've grown it, or we're starting to grow it if we're starting out. And we've got excited about the vision that we've cast for ourselves and perhaps those around us, and we're looking towards setting out in that journey, and it's really exciting, and you get, but we want it done our way. And as soon as you add another person or two, then it can start to go in different directions, and some of those are good, but quite often I didn't always feel they were good, and sometimes they had a implications that actually I'm still living with a few years down the line. And so there are right ways and wrong ways to do this, is what I want to say. And when I started out, I did not do it the right way. And that whole idea of checking and quality assuring work is really actually an important concept, and one that because when I took people on, I thought, oh, thank goodness that's off my plate. I don't have to worry about that anymore. And because people came to me and they with these CVs and credentials that they said that they were experienced in this and that and the other, you think, oh, they're brilliant. They can do it the same as I can. Well, no, they can't. They are never going to, even if they've had as much experience as you, they're not going to do it the way you do it for a start. And no two people's experience is completely the same. And if you're wanting the same results from your business, then the only way to get that is to have really clear policies and procedures in place, checklists galore, instructions for people on how you would do it, and none of that stuff that I did in the first instance, which I am now doing with my my current designer, and anybody else that works with me is going to be subjected to the way I want it done.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
I think what you're saying, just to sort of sum up what you've said so far, is that you're a go big or go home. But what you would, if you had your time again, you would have a certain amount of standard operating procedures in place before you did so that you could basically say to someone, I want you to take care of this piece of work for me. I'm going to give you this procedure. And I want you to follow this so that I know it's done this way. And at the end of it, you're going to tell me it's done. You're almost signing it off. And then I'm going to trust you that you've done this so that I don't have to QA what you've done, because that procedure is sound. But you might find, of course, that with any standard operating procedure, you might have written it 2 years ago. And in that 2 years, something has changed, whether you created it as a video or as a document or whatever, that may have changed. And I think always the crux with a lot of the family of people that say, you've got to have a whole load of standard operating procedures in place for business before you start asking other people to do things. Whilst I 100% agree with that, nothing is ever, in our business, things change. And they can change really quickly. So a Google Analytics setup 2 years ago that you may have created for, say, Universal Analytics isn't the same as setting up Google Analytics version 4, and how that's done, or the fact that you might set something up through Tag Manager, and as opposed to adding just a Google Analytics tag to a website. So different ways of doing things, as you say, in different approaches. So Martin, just coming on to you so that we can just capture this go big or go home scenario. What's your take on that? And are you in that camp, or are you more, I like to get to a certain point and just have the work that I've got, and then if I ever need somebody, that I'll work with somebody?
Yeah, it's a really good point. I was thinking about this beforehand. I realized that for quite some time I was quite conflicted on how to answer that. So before I started my business, I worked in large private industry, and before that, large public industry, and managed teams, and got promoted and successful and recognition, for doing well doing that, which led to managing bigger teams. And although it's really nice, when you've got somebody and you're able to help them to progress and to develop, and that's a fantastic thing. Generally, I didn't really enjoy managing teams. I wanted to do the stuff that I like doing, which is why I ended up, starting my own business, so that I could focus on doing the stuff that I like. So, for me, within this whole sort of web world, it's solving technical problems, linking different systems together, that sort of thing, kind of floats my boat, make my brain really work. And but I still had inside that kind of concept of the success of a business is based on, can you grow it? Does it get bigger? I mean, our whole capitalist society is based on grow, or you're doing something wrong. And as I started to grow, I realized that you kind of get back into some things that, Gill was talking about. Well, you're back into managing people. And is that something that you want to do? And I know, for some people it's really important, but I realized that for me, I didn't really want to do that again. So I would not go down the grow big route. The flip side of that is I found that just working on my own, I mean, I would occasionally, get somebody in to do bits and pieces. But one of the things about working on your own is that also you don't have that community. And for people listening, who probably don't know, I mean, we all have our own businesses, and then we're all together, as Allegiant Web. And one of the things that, I originally reached out to both you and Gill about was to be something so that it wasn't just 3 one-person bands, because you get that community and you get that help as well. And one of the hopes for the podcast, is by providing some sort of help and community for all of the people who are listening and watching, so we can get that balance where you've got support, but you're not necessarily growing your own business. And in summary, I kind of realized eventually that success is being able to do what you want to do when you want to do it. I haven't got there yet. My plan for this year was just to do 3 days a week. And I thought that'd be fantastic. I'm currently double successful because I'm doing 6 days a week, but I'm not quite sure that's how it's supposed to work.
Yeah, I think that might be the reverse.
Something somewhere is not right, is it?
But you need to write a book. The 4-hour working week, the 96-hour working week, and let's see how popular that is. It's funny as the human condition, isn't it, that we believe that the key to success is that somehow there's the desert island where we're only working 4 hours a week and we're making tons of money, and so we can go and sit on an island somewhere and drink cocktails and all the rest of it. But I think that my own personal experience of this is that I've been forwards and I've been what some people would say is backwards. So I've had a team, I had a team of people, and then I went back to working just myself. But I think certainly from what Martin was just saying about working with others, what I found is actually I really enjoy working with people that I've grown close to through community, that in some ways, one of the people that I work with the most in terms of having regular chats with and all the rest of it, and sharing best practice, sharing ways in which to do things, is someone that I've never met. And that is, so we all got to meet last year, we all met online, and then we all got to meet in person. And that was absolutely amazing. But it's something that the world in which we live in now is that you can work with someone in New Zealand if you live in the UK, you can work with someone in Los Angeles, and you can have this team that's dotted around the world. And all the people that I speak to in the community have got people that work in Bulgaria and Romania and the Ukraine, and big companies do this. Recently I was working with somebody in Google Ads, and they this was early on in the UK, Ukraine and Russia conflict, and my first question to him was, once I found out where he worked, I said, "How are you?" Because you automatically see something that unless you're there, you can't really appreciate and understand. So I think that is one of the best things about running any business, is that you can do that. But I think that one of the interesting things I'd like to dig into with Gill is the period of time where she went from having this team and some of the issues that came with it, to sort of taking a step backwards from it and then going again, because I know that that's what you've done. So let's talk about, it's easy to talk about the nice things with this, but let's talk about the pitfalls and some of the things that you learn.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm although I'm a bit of a geek and I come from a programming background, I'm actually highly relational. So everything, the most important thing to me out of everything is the relationship I have. So that's I'm also a little bit of a people pleaser. So having staff is not, that's the wrong way around, isn't it? They should be pleasing me, not be pleasing them.
Oh, okay.
Well, in theory. um, but actually it's so I learned some things. I did learn some things before I took some people on. And actually the way I did it was I tried to do it as low risk as possible. So being based in the UK, if you take on an employee, you're taking on all that burden of not only your national insurance, your tax, but you're also in the UK, you have to put a work employees pension thing in place, and then you've got all the processes and stuff like that. And if it doesn't work out, then it's really quite to get rid of somebody. And so I decided to go down the self-employed route. So I although I treat people as if they are an employee, they're actually self-employed with me. And I made my first foray into that by using some overseas workers. And I know that not everybody agrees with that, but as a small business with big ideas, I couldn't afford people from the UK market. While my desire would have been to obviously, take on somebody from the UK, the cost of living here is much higher than in some other countries. So
That's the thing, isn't it? Can I just stop you on that point?
yeah, absolutely.
Because I think that's the thing that many people run into, which is, okay, I would like to be able to pass some work out to somebody. And let's just say that you might be in year 1, year 2 of your web design business. So you're not charging, some of the big agencies we're talking three figures in terms of per hour.
Mm.
And many people don't start off that way. They start off with low rates. So
Yeah.
what they're trying to do is they're trying to build a business on low rates. And some people actually build their businesses on doing cheap websites as well. So they try and get as many websites as they possibly can. So when you were looking at your bottom line, because it's about profit, you still want to be making profit. How did you go about looking at what you could afford based on where your business was at? And at what point in your business did you decide, actually, yeah, this is the right time for me to be able to employ someone and I can afford this?
Yeah. It's a really good question. So I actually won a rather large contract, which was a rather large, in fact, I won two large contracts very early on. And I realized that they were not something that I could actually deliver myself, one of which, in fact, both of them required a lot of custom coding in PHP. And although my background's in programming, I had made the decision that I didn't want to get back into programming, so that I wasn't going to learn PHP and how to do that. So I knew that I wanted to take somebody on to do that. And when I looked around at how to do that, there are various ways you can do that. There are things like, your Fiverr.com, you've got what's the other one called?
Upwork.
Upwork, yeah.
Mm.
So you've got them, and then you've got some, you can just advertise on LinkedIn or whatever. But I had heard about this website, which was mostly based around the Philippines market, and I learned a lot about that. And so I thought I would give that a go, because the Filipino people are absolutely amazing. They're so lovely, and they're very diligent workers, very honest, and highly educated, absolutely highly educated. So I thought I would give that a go. So I actually took on two people at that time, one of whom was much more experienced than the other one. And set him to work on one of the big projects, and the other one worked on more standard websites with little functional twists and things like that. I just trusted them, set them to work, and assumed they were doing what they were going to do. And the results between the two of them were quite different, even in that scenario. Now, I'd interviewed them using some techniques that I had learned from an online sort of advice place. And so they both went through the same process, the same interview process, the same testing process, and came out with very different results in the end of the day. And one of whom we actually let go after 3 months because he just, it turned out, I kind of caught him out because it turned out that he was a gamer and a YouTuber, and he was spending a lot of his time playing games instead of doing his work. So none of his work was really up to standard, and it took forever to come. The other one was a very good worker, really diligent, but not quite as experienced as I expected him to be. But I didn't know that at the time because he did produce stuff. So if anybody understands code a bit, sometimes it can look okay in the top and you think it's working, and but underneath there's a big spaghetti mess, and if you want to change anything it's going to be a nightmare. And it's turned out that is actually what has happened, and there have been some errors that have not been found until much later down the line. Yeah, go ahead.
What would you do differently if you had exactly that scenario, but now as opposed to years ago?
That's a really good question. And so now I have been through, so I think I spent the time, like in the same way that I met you guys, I've also met other really experienced PHP programmers that I trust and know do a good job. So one of them, what I did was I gave him a little job to work together on, and we worked on this little one. And so when I worked with the chap from the Philippines, they would do exactly what you tell them to do, and no more, no less. Okay. When I gave this chap this small change on one of my PHP things, he came back and he said, I know you asked me to do that. He said, I did it. He said, but I also did this, and this because it's a much nicer user experience. And I went, be still, my beating heart. And I thought, and from there, we got progressively bigger projects together, and that was wonderful.
And I think this is the thing, isn't it? I think that finding and trusting, finding the right person through the right interview technique, perhaps putting them through some sort of test of whether they can match up to what you're looking for, could be a way forward. I know when I originally joined one of the companies that I worked for over the years, we did a number of different tests. We did technical, but we also did relationship type tests, and that was like a team test, and it was kind of like what we had was you would almost have a team of people sitting around a table. You would have an island, and you would have two people that you can save, and the island's on fire, and there's only two people. There's only two people that you can get off the island, and that means that 8 people are going to not live. So what you had to do is you had to persuade the others as to selecting your two who would be retrieved, and you would actually get a little bit of background on each of them. So as part of your brief, you would get this background. And without going into that in any more detail, I think that there are ways in which you can bring people on board that you've never met before, because I think even with people that you meet through community, there are a number of different hurdles that you go through. So when we met each other, and I'm talking meet each other online, we still had to go through a process in our brains, our own brains, to be able to say what level is this person at on all of these different types of judgment that we make. So we all spin plates in our businesses. So we'll have certain levels of PHP, certain levels of HTML, CSS. Let's carry on. SEO, maybe Google Ads, whatever you're experienced in and you've done, and we all know, we all have this knowledge of what somebody's got, and you work that out pretty quickly, because when you start asking people questions, people volunteer answers, and you know straight away whether that person's got the experience in that area. When it comes to going through perhaps a CV or an online, this is who I am and this is my level of experience, I always remember when at work, when people would say, I've got Office, Excel, PowerPoint, I'm proficient in all of these, and then you'd sit them down in front of it and they wouldn't have a clue. They might have opened up an Excel spreadsheet, and it's a bit like the interview from the IT crowd when she says, I can click, I can double click, I can open emails, and I can answer emails, and it's kind of like that kind of scenario, isn't it? So it's trying to find the right person that you match with. But once you go down that road, and what I picked up from both of you was managing people again. And Martin very much said, well, actually, I got out of the managing people game because I wanted to be able to be the doer. I wanted to be on the front line. I wanted to be solving problems. I was interested in solving problems, not interested in solving people's problems. And so people become a problem. So if Gill's agency, for example, had become tenfold, and you've got 10 people in a team, you've then got to have enough work for that team. So the go big or go home can be a scenario where you can still grow and you can still work with people and work with, say, 2 or 3 people, and you can get enough work for those 3 people. But if they're self-employed, then that's even better, isn't it? Because there might come a time when a pandemic might come along, and that might either be good or bad in your business.
Never going to happen.
No, never in our lifetimes, eh? So interestingly, Gill, so you're now at that point where you've got a different team and a different setup, and you're very happy to have your hands in the box, but you're also very happy to pass that over to somebody that you trust, because you've got people working for you at the moment.
Yeah, the interesting thing is that my goal's not that different from Martin's. It's just we've approached it differently.
Okay. Explain.
You know what, Gill?
Yeah.
Before you explain, why not leave that as a bit of a hook?
Oh,
See if
I like
people
that.
will come in for another episode, because I know we've gone for a little while now. So yeah.
Okay.
I'm also aware that we've talked a lot about people, and I think that there's a lot more to be said about the actual business side of it. So I think we could delve more into this.
Let's do that. Okay. So that is the end of this episode. We have gone on longer than we would normally go on for, but that's okay, because this is a new podcast, and we are finding our feet and finding our way. So for those of you that have tuned in, thank you so much for joining us, and do come back, because we will pick this up. We will pick up the same subject in our next podcast, which will be with you very, very soon. So thanks from me, thanks from Gill, and thanks from Martin.
Cheers, guys. Speak soon.
Bye.